Welcome to SolFul Connections, where we skip the small talk and head right into the soul talk. I'm Amanda Solar, and each week we share the kinds of stories that remind us we're not alone. It's about being human, raw and unfiltered, just real talk. Let's connect.
Connection. Let's talk about connection.
So today on SolFul Connections is Kellyann Schaefer, certified life and business coach. And, I've kind of like been in your orbit, Kelly, for a number of years. And then we kind of have these like meetings, and then I'll see like a post, or I'm always intrigued by your post because to me, when I see you out in the world, I'm always struck by like this combination of the unexpected. You don't say what I'm expecting or what I'm used to hearing. There's a vulnerability, but it's also really uber confident and bold, which is kind of like this interesting mix to me.
Yeah.
So, kind of before we jump in,
Mhm.
can I just ask what in the past week has made you smile?
Oh my God, what in the past week has made me smile? Well, in the past week, so last week, I had a group of members of my community fly in from all across the country. And I held an event locally for them. And so being in that room with them and watching them just have like this awakening, because it's not just about your business. Our businesses will only be capped out as far as our own personal development will be. So having them together in this like-minded community in this way, that was definitely a smile moment. And then that was last Thursday, and then the next day I had a VIP day for two of the members stayed for a VIP day, and they were here in my home, and we coached all day, and had some surprises for them, and I had a local healer come in and do some healing journeys with us, and so it was really just. It's been a beautiful week. And then that night, I donned on a costume. I went to a silent disco.
Okay, you
Yeah.
have a lot of energy.
I do. I do have a lot of energy. And then I also have moments where I just need I need a reboot. So like for the weekend was just really chill. I gave myself permission yesterday, Monday. It should have been like back to work, because as a business owner, you know that, you can't you don't just walk into your business every day and have clients waiting for you like you did when
Right.
you had a job.
Yeah.
So there's a very different skill set that you need to learn when you're a business owner. But I gave myself permission yesterday to have the day off. And so some days when I just want to just be chill, I do things like stuff I used to do, like fold laundry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can we explore that one thing you said because it's really fascinating? You said something about our business doesn't grow beyond our, what was it?
Our mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you
Yeah.
share what you mean by that?
Well, for example, so I just put a a post out on my Facebook page yesterday that said, we're not here to play small, and that y'all have to stop fighting for your limitations, and that I said what I said,
Yeah.
and that's a philosophy that I think I've always. I don't know if I was born with it. I think partly I was born with it, and then partly life's circumstances required that of me. So I could have grown as a human being, that I am capable of more, that I have more to offer, that I deserve more, versus believing all of the things that we were told by either our family of origin, people just in our space when we were growing up, or society at large. And so I'm always working on my mindset. So I am someone that does not believe in excuses. I am someone that believes that there's always a opportunity for growth. I even did this with my kids, and I still do today when they're like, "Well, I can't such and such and such and such," right? And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, but you're claiming that and you're owning that." And so, you saying you can't get a job that's, only 2 days a week, you're believing that.
Yeah.
And therefore you're showing up in the world as someone who believes you can only get a job.
Yeah.
There's no jobs out there that are in alignment with what you need right now. And it's basically a philosophy of why not me, and fighting for your growth versus your limitations.
That's a powerful thought. That's a really powerful thought. And it's a reminder about the power of not only the words we say to others, but the words we say to ourselves.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my dad used to always say, can't means won't, can't means won't.
Yes, my mother used to tell me that too.
And I used to say, but sometimes it means
Mhm.
can't. But you know what? I just have a side note. I said it to my daughter one time. My one daughter said she wanted something, and my other daughter said, Julie, that's impossible. And I said, and my daughter said, no, mommy says nothing's impossible. It's not impossible. And my middle daughter turned to her and said, turn into a chicken.
Well, she could have turned into a chicken. She could have walked around the house and, made chicken noises and, got
That's true.
creative and found a dozen eggs in the refrigerator. I mean, she could have turned into a chicken.
He could have, but it really silenced her, which I think was ultimately the point.
Yeah.
Um, so what do your days look like? Like what fills your life these days?
Okay, so what fills my life these days is I am what I refer to it as a vacant nester. I'm not an empty nester. I am a vacant nester. We have two that are out of the house and two who are in college and come back. And so the nest is not completely empty. So it's vacant at times. And then it's not vacant, usually when we want it to be. So there's that part of life that's going on. From a business perspective, it's a combination of coaching, one-to-one coaching. I have group coaching programs. I create a lot of content and information out in the market for people to learn from. I like to share a lot of my own personal struggles because I think people learn a lot from me from what I've been through. Um, the last couple years, I have been working deeply on. So I'm a certified life coach as well, business coach. And then a couple years ago, I started working in the realm of human design. It can be considered a little bit woo, but I have found it so, so fascinating. And it's something I have dove so deep into in my own personal life. And it has changed how I just even see how I see myself and see my gifts, as well as that I would normally just put aside. And then also how to recognize my shadow patterns. We all have these patterns in our lives. And just having the awareness that it is a shadow and that it is a pattern gives us power. And so I'm almost to the end of my certification in that philosophy. And so I've been bringing that in as well to my business and life coaching because it really helps people get to the root of who they are, how they are meant to be seen in the world, where they're going to bump up against resistance, where they're going to bump up to these patterns. And it's helped them grow their businesses, their their relationships with themselves, and it helps with self-love, and it also has helped them tremendously in their relationships with others because we are all control enthusiasts in some way or another, and we have to realize that we don't have control over other people, circumstances, or situations. that we only have control over ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been something I've been really passionate about, that I was first introduced to it about 13 years ago before it became more mainstream. And it just, my intuition just kept bringing me back to it. So my weeks are planned, yet they're varied. I have set goals that I want to achieve every week. I created a philosophy called floating versus routine, because I think a lot of the time management philosophies that have been out there have been created by certain types of people, and also very masculine driven. And so I don't do well with a very, very strict schedule. I do better when I have an overarching schedule for the week, and I know that I will get it all done on time, always within time. But I have more of a flow to my approach to my week. So,
Yeah, that's very interesting actually, because it's so you seem like such to use such a common phrase, but out of the box thinker. You don't just go along with the status quo. I don't know if that's always who you are. Do you mind going back a little bit and just sharing, first of all, what were you like as a child? What did you want to be? I'm just so curious because I know you were a nurse. Were you like the little girl who was like, I'm going to be a nurse? And
oh
then
God,
just what was like your journey to where you are today?
oh my Lord, we could sit here, settle up, people. You could be here for a long time. Okay, so let's try to give you the most poignant, most necessary pieces of childhood. So, as far as what I wanted to be when I grew up, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I just knew back when I was a child, I loved people, and I also simultaneously loved being alone. It was very interesting. I could play by myself for hours. I was an only child, and yet I loved being with other people and sitting in conversation. I always loved being with older people. My great great grandmother was like, when people talk about who was your hero in your life, and I jokingly say I was my own hero, because I really was. I was the person I had to look up to myself. There was nobody else really to look up to, but she was also my hero, my great great grandmother. So as I was thinking about school, I I didn't have a great childhood. Things were hard. I bumped up against life a lot, both circumstances at home and circumstances, financially, as well as where I went to school. I didn't quite fit in at all, ever. Um, I was smart, but I wasn't in the smart club, right? I was fun to be around, but I wasn't a cool kid. Um, we didn't have money, so that put us out of that. So when I was growing up, all I know is that I loved math and science, and I thought I had my aunt's sister-in-law. She was a lab tech, and I thought, oh, that's what I want to be. I want to be a lab tech. Yes, right. This sounds amazing. She would bring home stuff when she was going to college, and like, parts in jars and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. This is what I want to do. I want to find a cure for cancer. I want to, find answers that nobody else is finding. And that's what I thought I wanted to be. And then I became a mother when I was really young. I became a mother at the age of 15. I turned 16 when my daughter was 2 months old. And so getting a job and getting a career became very apparent very quickly. And I had to move my tail feathers pretty quickly. So at the time, I still thought I was going to be a lab tech, and I was working in the kitchen of, if anybody's familiar with the area, Northeastern Hospital down on Allegheny Avenue. I worked in the kitchen. I worked in the dietary department, and I found out that my favorite thing in the I loved things where I had to do multiple things at once, and I liked being fast at it. Things that were boring to me were just boring. So there were certain jobs in the kitchen that I liked more than others, but then my favorite job was the one where I got to pass trays. So that's back in the day. You used to take the food trays up to the unit, and you would hand them out to all the patients, and then you would go back and you would collect them. And part of that job was helping patients fill out their menus. And that was hands down my favorite part of my job. It was the interaction, the talking to the patients, to somebody who felt like so sad and alone and sick and scared. And here I was trying to make their world better that day by telling them that I could get them mashed potatoes, even though it wasn't on the menu, right? It was like stuff like that that I just loved. And then I didn't know what to do with that. And so somebody said to me, and I don't even remember who, but somebody said to me, "Why don't you become a nurse?" And I was like, "What? Me? A nurse?" Because nobody in my family, none of the women had gone to college. Some had taken some college courses, but nobody ever graduated from college. Most of them were laborers or worked as waitresses. So this was like a big, like out of the box idea. And I was like, okay, well, let's see if I have the stomach for it. I don't know if I have the stomach for it, but I did because I loved, as a child, I used to collect animals. We were talking earlier about
Yeah.
animals. I would go out and I would find wounded animals in the woods and I would bring them home and I would try to take care of them. And sometimes they would die anyway, and sometimes they didn't die, and I could release them back into the world. So once I became an aide, I had like one day on the floor doing things that a nurse's aide had to do. And I was like, I was meant for this. This is so for me. And so that's how I became a nurse instead of going into being a lab tech. So still math and sciencey, but it gave me the interaction that I think the being in a lab wouldn't have given me as much. And I joke now, like, what would it have been like for me to work long days in a cold room wearing an ugly long white jacket with no windows? I would not have done well there.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I just have to say 15,
Yeah.
because you're such a baby at 15. I think at 15, okay, I'll embarrass myself, Kelly. I might have still been playing with dolls.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
if
basically went from playing with dolls to having a
having a
child.
baby, if somebody had handed me a baby, I, you know, I mean, I babysat, but how did you navigate motherhood when you were a baby yourself?
How did I navigate motherhood while I was a baby myself? I fought to have her when I found out. There were that was not the option that was being presented to me, and I fought really hard to have her and to keep her, and I just did the best that I could with what I had, and I just like I fought for her and
Wow.
me, but I fought for her and her future, which is, I started I dropped out of high school. Not everybody knows this story, but I dropped out of high school because when I had her, it was my February, so I was halfway through my sophomore year of high school, and I dropped out. School had wanted me to come back right away. My doctor said, "No, you can't go back right away. You need to have some, weeks at home, yada yada." And so then the idea of going back to school like Monday through Friday and not being able to work was not really an option. So I had to work. So I was working and then I was taking classes to get my GED. And then, long story short, what happened was I ended up starting college the year that all of my classmates were going into their senior year of high school.
That is crazy. So wait, where do you think that resilience and courage and determination came from?
People ask me that all the time. And that's why when they say, oh, if you had a hero when you were growing up, who was your hero? And I say this and not as a conceitedness at all, but I was my own hero.
Yeah.
Like I just believed inside that there was better out there. It is innate in me to fight for more, to fight for better, and not just for myself, but for the people around me as well.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because you say like, how did you know how to do that? Because and there's a lot of other stories that I could share, and we could be here for hours. But that being said, when I mentioned this deep dive into human design that I've been doing, over the past few years, it is actually in my design. I am here to fight. I am
Yeah.
here to fight, and I'm also here to push other people. So
And
it
you're
comes
doing
out
both.
naturally, even when I don't try. And by pushing other people, it doesn't mean like physically going up and pushing people, right? But it's by me just sharing my own experiences, by me sharing my belief in betterment, in improvement, in more, in availability to all, to not allow not allow yourself to be a martyr and a victim of your circumstances.
Yeah.
And that is all in my wiring. What is unique is that for some God-given reason, there are a lot of shadows to that as well. And maybe it was because I was such a young mom, and maybe it was because I was fighting for something more than myself, that
Oh,
I could have gone down the path of all the shadows of my design, and instead I was in the path of the gifts of my design. And that was of this ability to fight and want more and go after more. And I literally have a channel, it's called The Strength of Ambition. So when I read it, I'm like, obviously.
so do you think that the fact that you faced
Mhm.
some of life's biggest challenges
Yeah.
really young, we
Yeah.
all face enormous challenges. It comes with life,
Mhm.
but we don't all face them as children. Not all of us do. I
Mhm.
mean, you could probably go down a path and people could say, but this meant this, but you had specific challenges that you faced and overcame. Did that somehow teach you how to be that person that was not felled by things?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that we're all here to live out a highest expression of ourselves. And sometimes, what do they say? Do you remember like back in the 80s, I think it was, there was that little rock machine thing where you would put the
Yes.
rocks inside the thing and you'd have to turn them and then they would come out, some beautiful stone. And I think, I believe that to my core, that it is the hard of life that makes us who we become if we're willing to not become a victim of the hard. It's like that, being the victim of the circumstances. So my life was hard, and my life was hard even before that. There were a lot of other circumstances. I'm in the middle actually of writing a chapter for a book that will be coming out next year, where I share some of that. There's also a downside to that, right? So the flip side to that is that you become accustomed to being a survivor.
Yeah.
And then the flip side to that is, even when things are going well, you are fighting.
Yeah.
You're coming from that survivor mentality. But some people have said to me, well, aren't you mad at so and so or this person or that experience? And I say, I can be mad, or I can just choose that those players in my life were brought into my life so that I could have this experience, so that I could learn these lessons that I am meant to live this time around as a human.
Um, so you were a nurse,
Hmm.
and a nurse is a job that exists in the world.
Hmm.
How did you make the shift to do maybe a job that didn't quite exist really in the
Hmm.
world? Like, what did you, the Concierge Academy,
Hmm.
did you go from nursing to developing that?
So what happened was, I think I was about, it was 10, 15 years ago. So I was about 37. And I believe that a lot of us go through, especially women around 40, we start feeling like we're growing out of our skin. And again, that can morph into a lot of different variations. And for me, it was just like I loved what I did. I loved the patients. I even loved the families were terrible. I'm going to be completely honest. I worked It's a hard hospital to work at. There were family members that, would threaten you and throw stuff at you, and it was not an ideal situation. But it was the institution itself of healthcare started to, what I say, eat me from the inside out. Because you said something in the very beginning when we first started speaking, how like I think outside the box, right? When you're in healthcare, you're taught to really think within a very specific box. And yes, there are reasons for that, right? Because, if you have a heart attack, we want to follow these steps, right? To support your health and your heart and, keep you alive, right? Of course, we want to follow these symptoms. We want to follow these steps. Yes. But it's like everything else that's around it, I started feeling like, and I would tell myself over and over again, I am not an effing robot. I am not here to just push meds, document, and click shit on an online, because this is when documentation and so forth just started to come more online. Before that, it all was still like on paper. And so even like what I might have wanted to say and wrote about my patient and their experience on paper was not now available for me because I had to click a button on a computer. And so I just it was a while. It was really impacting me. And interestingly enough, I ended up in a conversation, again for another day, I ended up creating a job for myself because I was asked to do some teaching. Our nurse educator had to go out for knee replacement surgery, and she was going to be out for, however many weeks. And there was a new policy that was being laid out, and would I be able to go around and make sure everybody knew how to do this new policy, right? And had to do with PICC lines. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that. And so I was there for like 2 days, and I was like, okay, what else am I doing? Because I can't just stand around all day. And so I literally created a job out of nothing. I started looking at all of the problems that we were facing on the unit as a collective, as nurses trying to provide good care. Like, on a Friday, we would have maybe 20 post-op patients that day, and we would have our supply closet would have 7 of a device that we need to give every post-op patient. Why is that? Why are there only 7 and we get 21? But then you would call and you would ask somebody, can you go get it? It's not my job. Da, 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 da. So I started changing all the broken shit that was on my unit. I started fixing things. I started creating new processes. I simplified things. I brought groups together to solve problems. Like, okay, person who runs the supply distribution center, how about you have a conversation with me about what it's really like to be a nurse on the floor, having this many people, we run out of supplies. Why don't we just change the par level? Why does it have to be so complicated, right? Because nobody took the time to think about it and fix it. So I did this for about 2.5 years. I created out of thin air.
Was there resistance?
There was resistance, not so my nurse manager, she loved it. She was like, what? She's like, get out there and fix all this shit. And I was like, I am out there, Debbie. I'm going to do it all. There was resistance, however, with the other nurses that I worked with, because they thought that my job was easy and that they were doing all the quote unquote hard work while I was doing this like cushy job. Mind you, in the middle of that, I was helping all the nurses pass their meds, change linens, give people baths, clean messes, all of it. I became like an extra fill-in as well for everybody. So it was a little bit challenging from their perspective, right? Because just think which is one of my things. Who does she think she is, right? And I was like, no, look, I'm literally trying to fix things for you all. So, but then again, it became like ongoing. And then I ended up going back to floor nursing again, because then they, layoffs deleted that position after 2.5 years. And that's when I had this call to, again, there was this something inside of me that was like, I don't belong here anymore, but I didn't know what else to do. I was a mom. I worked in a kitchen. I worked as a nurse's aide. I became a nurse. That was basically the trajectory of my life. So I didn't even know of entrepreneurship. I didn't know anything outside of being a nurse. And so when I was like, well, what else can I be when I grow up? I literally would sit and I would say, all I know how to do is take care of people. And I'm really organized at home. But to me, those were natural. That was just like everybody's knows how to take care of people, and everybody is organized at home. And the more I started talking to people, they were like, no, that's not true. And then I started to bring together these like moments in time, like that defining moment when, I was like, oh, there has to be a better way for this. And oh, there has to be a better way for that. And oh, what happens to these patients that we discharge home that don't get home care, that don't have family, that just had knee replacement, that can't bend over and clean the litter box? Right? Like dumb, like randomly dumb things. And that is what spearheaded my idea of starting a local concierge business. And my local business was simply I was going to help take care of people in my local community in a way that I wanted to, that was not being driven by society of hospital and healthcare.
Mm, makes sense.
So that's how that business got started.
Yeah.
So helping seniors stay at home longer, taking care of things like groceries and hearing aids, and helping them bake cookies and meal planning and cooking soup, and helping them keep their paperwork together and organizing. And I built a business out of problem solving and skill sets that I had.
And then did that transition into the life coaching? Does that still exist?
It does. So it exists in very small pieces because I was in 2012. Yeah, 2012. I started my business in 2010. In 2012, 2 years later, people started seeking me out in the industry, being like, how did you grow? How did you get clients? Because in the industry, most people, 75% of all people who had businesses like me were making less than 25K a year, and they had been in business for like 7 to 10 years already. And I was like, well, that is not going to cut it. We got to fix this. So I dug into everything I could about marketing and learning and selling and just building relationships and how to do that authentically in a way that felt good versus feeling bad. And then that business model went from a team of one, me, to 8 employees in under 5 years.
Wow.
And so I had learned, again, I learned a lot, because what you do when it's one-on-one is very different than what you do when it's one with 2 people in the business or 4 people in the business, or you are not doing the boots on the ground work anymore and you're stepping back and you're the face of the business, and you're building systems and hiring and firing, and right. So I had learned so much that people started really like double, like, how did you do this? Show me how you did this. Show me how you did this. And so I was running both ships for almost 10 years. And then that, again, it just kind of evolved. Like what problems can I solve?
Yeah.
Where can we think outside the box? What can I do here? Which then developed the Concierge Academy. I wrote a book in 2017 that talked all about how I grew my business, the marketing, the mindset, and the pricing behind my business model. And it's just grown from there. It's one-on-one coaching, group coaching, retreats, live events, you name it. I have brought it to the marketplace.
What do you hope is the impact on the people that you guide?
Oh my God. So I might cry. So we're going to try to settle it down now. But the impact of the work that I have done has been life-changing, for not just for me to witness even, but for the people who have coached with me and have really, they have gone from women who had no confidence, that were stay-at-home moms, that just wanted to like bring in a little extra money to their family, who have become the primary breadwinners in their family, who have gone out and bought second homes, who are making 2, 3, 4, $500,000 a year, I have somebody who came in who works with seniors. She worked with me a few years ago, and she has crossed the $1 million mark in her business.
Wow.
So it has changed not just their lives, but then the lives of the people that they get to work with. Confidence, they build confidence, they learn to love themselves, they deepen their relationships, they say yes to themselves in ways that they never did before because they thought they needed permission from whether it be society, a spouse, a parent, even their own kids, right? So that is the legacy that I'm leaving, is a group of women who just completely have transformed their lives through this gift of taking care of other people. It started as a business that they thought would be fun and has grown into such a bigger part of their lives and their communities. And then they give other women jobs. And there's a woman in my program now who, she was working for another company, and I think she started working with me in 2021. I think 2021, maybe 22. And she was working full time, started her business, slowly went from working full time as a job to go working her job part-time to having her business part-time to going full-time in her business. Single mom, making $80,000 this year, and she won't have to actually worry about anybody giving her a job ever again. She built her job during school hours, so she works Monday through Friday from the time she drops her daughter off, because she doesn't have a lot of extra support, so it's her.
Yeah, wow.
And it's it's things like this and the stories like this that um, really are part of why I do what I do.
Yeah.
It's more than just the business. It's more than just making money. It's changing people's lives and changing people's stories. What they thought was meant for them is not meant for them.
Yeah. It feels
Let's
like a
build what
calling.
is.
It does feel very spiritual.
It's I guess it could be considered a calling and spiritual.
That's my Catholic school background, Kelly.
Yeah, well, it is called. So my life's purpose is to cause friction in other people. So that is my purpose. My purpose is to cause friction and cause tension in other people. And it's not necessarily like that. And for some people, it can cause bad tension. And they're like, I can't stand that girl. She drives me nuts, which is totally fine. They're not my people. And then there are other people who are like, yes, I want that too. I want that too. It's a way of stoking a flame that they're afraid to admit to or believe that is available to them. Last year, or this year, actually, this past year, I went to Paris, and I went to Paris for not just a week. I went for 6 weeks. And people were like, "You did what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I went and I lived in Paris for 6 weeks."
Now, did
By
you do this by
yourself?
yourself? Oh, by yourself?
By yourself? Yes. Now, the last 11 days, my husband flew over for our anniversary, and we spent 11 days together. And I took my dog. And so it was me and Benji, and I ran my business from there as well.
And what was that like?
It felt so, first of all, it felt so surreal
Yeah.
to just be in Paris that long. It was a level of freedom, of just freedom of desire, of choice, of openness, because the French culture is also very different than the American culture. So my days were just consisted of me and Benji. Oh, let's go find a new coffee shop today, Benji.
So, what made you choose Paris?
That was the one, two, three, fourth time I had been in Paris.
Wow.
So I had been there before. I'd been there for like 2 days, and then I was there for a week, and then I was there for 3 days. And I just loved everything about Paris. People are always like, "Do you speak the language?" I don't speak a lick of it. I gain one new word every time I go, so I'm up to about 5 words now. But I just love their. I don't know. There's just something that calls me there. Like everybody has a place that just feels so right to them. For some people, it's the islands. For some people, it's a different state. For some people, it might be Australia or Mexico or, I think it was being willing to follow that longing and that desire despite what anybody else thought.
Yeah. So speaking of what other people think,
Hmm.
what would the people who are closest to you, how would they describe you, do you think?
Oh my God. The people closest to me. Well, there's different levels of closest to me.
Yes.
um, well, I will tell you what I have heard a lot of people who are close to me say. Resilient, inspiration, love. Like I'm the person that wears her heart on her sleeve, give the shirt off my back. And then some people would also say pig-headed, stubborn, selfish, which are all like natural. I'm an Aries. If anybody follows astrology at all, I am an Aries, Sun, Moon, and Venus. So I have a lot of passion. I have a lot of, take chargedness. Um, and I don't do things I don't want to do. And I
Oh,
don't care who it's for. It could be for my spouse, it could be for my clients, it could be for my mother, it could be for my children. I don't do things because I feel like I should or have to. There's something very self-honoring. For example, right? My son is coming home this weekend for his birthday. He'll be taking the train down from New York. He takes 2 trains down, and he needs to be picked up at, the train station. And 99.9% of the other mothers in the world would say, well, you should go get him. And I'm like, no, I don't have to go get him. There are 100 other ways he could find to get here. If I go get him, I'm doing it because I want to. So I never feel, because I don't feel angry. I don't feel, because some people will do it and then they're pissed off that they did it, or they feel like they've been taken advantage of, or now they have to set all these boundaries, right? Like I don't have to set boundaries with people. I set boundaries with myself. I don't have to set boundaries with other people. So when I am doing something, it's literally because I'm choosing to do it, because I want to do it. Even this morning, my husband, there's a show that he wants to see next year. And I was like, did you ever get those tickets? And he was like, oh, and he looks it up. He's like, it's May, and I think it's 9th. And I said, oh, that's right. Because it's Mother's Day weekend. And he was like, yeah, that's why I didn't book tickets. And I was like, well, buy the tickets. And he's like, but you don't want to do this. And I'm like, no, I would love to go with you. I'll go. And he's like, no, 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 I don't want you to. And I'm like, my guy, do I ever do anything that I don't actually want to do? He's like, sometimes. I'm like, tell me when. Name a time. And he's like, yeah, not really, not very often. And I said, exactly. So get the tickets. I want to go with you.
love it. I love it. Um, okay, so for somebody who's listening
Hmm.
and they do everything that
Hmm.
other people want them to do,
Yeah.
they're feeling stuck, and you only have maybe one little nudge or one little nugget to share, what do you think you would say to that person?
Your body has the answers.
Yeah.
We use our brains, which are fabulous tools, but we use our brains to navigate the world. And it's really our gut, it's our body. And a lot of people say follow your heart. Sometimes the heart can get you in trouble too, though. So it's like it's a body. Our body is a wealth of information. There's a coach that I listen to, and she calls, your body compass, right? And it does, like your body, if you are presented with something, an opportunity, very simply, if our body leans into it, that's going to probably feel good. If your body is pulling back, it's probably not going to feel good. And there will be regret and, you know, all the negative pieces of making decisions from our head. And anytime you ever say, I should, That should be your pattern interrupt for you to stop and ask yourself if you really truly want to. Because it's a gift to follow your own inner nudges, your own inner GPS versus what everybody else wants for you is how I have navigated my life before I had words for it, before I knew how to do it intentionally. I was doing it naturally.
And as we close things out,
Mhm.
if you had one message from your own life,
Mm.
what would that message be at this point, do you think?
Wherever you are now, there's so much more available.
Mhm.
It's just simply that.
Kelly, thank you. Thanks for what you do in the world. I appreciate that. And thank you for coming and sharing so much of yourself and your story on the podcast.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Hopefully, there were some nuggets here that somebody will walk away with and feel inspired by, or feel that little nudge inside themselves that maybe they've been holding themselves back from.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. Thank you for being a valued part of the Soulful community. Thank you to William Aronson for writing, recording, and producing the Soulful Connections theme song. And finally, always know you're not alone. We are connected. We're all in this thing together, and you and your story are important. Let's just keep on connecting.